welcome to, my name's Rhonda Powling, and it's my pleasure to be moderator here to support Chelsea, our presenter, throughout this session. You will see on your screen in the right-hand column a live Q&A option and a discussion forum. We will encourage you to ask questions of the speakers as we go, and we'll get to them, as many of them as we can. If I see some of them look a bit similar, I might combine them and let Chelsea know. But if there are any unanswered questions, we do have a record of them, and we will try and catch up and share them later on. So in our notes after the day is finished, we will you'll probably find a number of those questions shared. So this is my first time doing this, so it's going to be interesting for us all. Okay, so it's my very great pleasure to introduce our session speaker, Chelsea Quake. She's the teacher librarian and head of libraries at Sandringham College, which is a 7 to 12 public secondary school in Sandringham, which is quite obvious, I would have supposed. Chelsea began her career as a librarian in universities about 10 years ago. She moved to school libraries in 2013. And after witnessing firsthand the immense potential of school libraries to enrich and even change young people's lives, she decided to stay put in schools for good. So we're very lucky. Nowadays, Chelsea is focused on driving digital and information literacy across all year levels, a woman after my own heart, and ensuring that the school library maintains a critical presence inside the curriculum. So Chelsea's presentation, you've got the title there, Zombies Falling Off Cliffs and Much More, Story-Based Learning as a Pedagogical Approach. Now, I'm going to give everybody a warning a few minutes before the end, but please do put your questions in. I'll star some and perhaps reorganise them. I didn't get a chance to ask Chelsea, would you like me to wait to the end or let me know when you want questions? Or
Oh, I'm happy for questions as they come. That's fine. Yep.
Okay.
Used to being interrupted. I'm a teacher.
Yes. Oh, don't we know that at this time of the year? Okay, Chelsea, we'll leave it to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rhonda. So my presentation is about story, and just to let you know a little bit about where I'm coming from. So my teaching method, the area I teach in, is digital technologies. So I have some examples that I want to show you from my teaching practice, and they do involve quite a bit of use of digital mediums, so videos, audio, making little websites, things like that. But I just wanted to reassure everyone that story can be used as a pedagogical approach without that even. So it can be quite literally as simple as the words that come out of your mouth. The point of story as a pedagogical tool is to weave meaningful human experience through the content in a unit. And of course, that's particularly useful when you're trying to make something like teaching kids how to, I don't know, do an algebra or some of the more advanced physics subjects. When you're trying to relay that kind of content, and it can sometimes sound a little dry, no offense to the physics teachers, or just a little bit hard for students to get their heads around, being able to turn a subject like that or content like that into something that is personally meaningful and involves their emotions and their imagination is quite useful. And the brain science behind it says definitely that it does enhance learning, and it also enhances memory retention. So basically what I'm going to try and cover in this session, I hopefully have got enough time, but I'm going to spend a couple of minutes just quickly defining what a story is, because it is a very, it's a general term that we all sort of feel intuitively that we're familiar with and we know what it means, but there are actually some definitions from the academics. I won't go too much into that, but it's worth thinking about what a story is, as opposed to just general conversational narrative. So where you would be relaying something that you have done or seen. We'll look at the brain science, which is basically just 3 chemicals we're going to look at. So it's very simplified, dumbed down brain science. And then I'll show you some examples of a couple of units, or possibly one if I don't get time to do two, where I have used story as the basis for the content delivery. And this, I should say, has become something that we're going to just drag out of the suitcase each year, and maybe we'll adapt it a little, but it was particularly useful during COVID online learning. So you'll see why when I show you the examples. So first off, to a definition of story. So what is story? I quite like this quote, which is slightly obstructed by my own head in the window. Okay, it is important to distinguish between storytelling as a pedagogical technique and the socio-scientific concept of creating narratives. So often good teachers will personalise their teaching, personalise their lessons by relaying anecdotes, those sorts of things to students. You know, oh, one day I did this, and one day, you know, when I was learning that, I remembered it by doing this, or that kind of thing. And that's sort of partway towards storifying a unit of study. It's very important. It has a similar effect. But what I'm sort of trying to talk about today is an actual story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So it follows that arc as we know it. There's usually some kind of a moral or a dilemma or a key learning that's placed somewhere in there. So a little nugget that the kids have to dig out. So we've got two little sort of comparisons here, storytelling versus everyday narrative. One of the things I like about these two, this comparison of these two, is that when we look at everyday narrative, it tends to be very much socio-culturally embedded, very much to do with what's right and wrong in our society. So there are some stories that it would just not be appropriate to tell because it's not something that's socially sanctioned within our cultural world. Whereas a story, pretty much anything goes. So I mean, obviously there's ratings, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that it can be, it can involve fantasy, it can involve people who don't exist, it can involve people doing things that wouldn't be good things to do, but we know it's just a story. So it gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of what you can present. So why should we tell stories? Well, I've kind of already just gone through that, but I thought I would explicitly pop it down here. I've just put three main points that we should be aware of. Mostly it relates to the fact that when we engage with a story, we're actually engaging emotionally and creatively, as well as just, you know, thinking wise. So it's more than just thinking. We're actually engaging, we're experiencing it, and we're participating in it. And that's exactly what we want our students to do when we're teaching them something. We want them to engage on a personal level and to become active participants. Okay, on to the brain science. Fun. So there are three main organic chemicals that are involved in the process of listening to a good story. So I should mention that these chemicals do not really come into play if the story's a dud or if it's one you're not interested in. But these three, these are the ones that we know are released and hold our attention and give us that nice sense of reward when we've heard a great story. So there is nothing more frustrating than hearing the beginning of a story and then somebody gets interrupted or called away and we don't ever get to hear the ending. And that feeling of frustration, there is an actual biological basis for that. We didn't get our oxytocin hit, basically. We got the cortisol, we got interested, we got the dopamine, we had that moment of stress and tension, but we never got the release at the end. So I've just got a little bit of text that I've chopped out of the last article I popped into Synergy. So you can read it in more detail if you want to read a whole article about this. But basically, with those three chemicals, once you've got the kid's attention, that's the cortisol. That's a stress hormone, but it's stress as in attention, not necessarily a bad thing. That's when the class goes quiet and the kids are actually looking and listening, and they've stopped twiddling with their tablet or their pens or whatever. That's when you've got the opportunity to hook them. So worth having a look at this if you want to know a little bit more about the brain chemistry. But it's good to know. It's good to know. So it adds a bit of scientific rigor to it. Some examples, and once again, like I said, if you're not a teacher, it doesn't matter. These are just things that you can point teachers towards to I guess remind them that you, being a professional who is surrounded by stories every day and knows story and the impact that story has on children, you can encourage them to storify their units. So I need to stop sharing my screen and then re-share it, I think, to get the... Is that correct? Or can you see my library website now? Or is it still on the PowerPoint?
You have to, at the moment, it's just focused on the PowerPoint. You can use an option in Zoom. I don't know if it is here. But I really like what you're saying while you're doing that, because I think we all know that information, when it's put into a context, helps people form links and helps them related to previous learning. So it is just storifying something helps them do that.
Yes, exactly.
But he must be avidly listening to you.
All right, I think I got it. Okay, so here's... yeah. All right, so good. Lots of dopamine out there, hopefully. Okay, so here's our library web page. So I just thought I'd pop this little piece of advice in for you guys. Really great to put all these resources onto your library website, so you're keeping the teachers connected with the library website. You're keeping the students connected with the library website. Everything goes through the library because we want the curriculum to have roots in the library and what we do. So we direct students to our topic guides, which is probably, I guess, a lot of people, myself included, used to think of them as LibGuides. But since the advent of click and drag website creation, we've been able to make a similar sort of thing ourselves and a little bit prettier. So the examples I'm going to show you are for year 8, and here they all are. So the Saving Archie one, I'll just give you a rough rundown of that one because it's probably the zombie one that you'll be more interested in. Saving Archie, I'll just open up the tab for it. Okay, this is the topic guides. This is what happens when you click on it. There's a problem and then there's the research page. So the research page is where all the information sits for the students to use to solve the problems. They basically have to create a machine using Lego Technic to save a child called Archie who fell off a cliff whilst taking a selfie. So that's the story. So we don't even tell them what they've got to do initially. In the very beginning of the lesson, what we do is we read them a story. So here's the story, A Selfie Gone Wrong. We chose the name Archie because we have so many Archies in year 8. And it's, you know, I've just summed up the story in a few sentences, but we do it as a proper story. We read it out, and ultimately this substitutes a question that could be posed as follows. There is a 50-kilogram weight at the bottom of a 15-meter drop. Find a way of lifting the 50-kilogram weight to the top of the ledge. So that's very boring and dry. So instead we turn the weight into Archie and there's that tension, and the kids, by the end of it, they just hate him. They think he's so stupid, which is what we want, because you know, they will remember Archie. So the second one we have is the zombie apocalypse. This was a whole unit of work that ran across a term during online learning with COVID. This is the topic guide, although it's more like a mini website. So we have this scenario where zombies have taken over the earth, because we all know that teenagers love dystopian fiction. I found some random pictures online. This is sort of like the blog of this kid who is stuck in a compound. There's some pictures of the food store. There's some pictures of people communicating on radios because internet's not so good. I don't know who these people are, but I just found these images. And then one day this child is on the radio and a call for help comes through from a remote Western Australian town. The call comes from a girl called Poppy, and she is stranded in the middle of nowhere. No one knows she's there. She needs rescuing. The rescuing unit is on the way, apparently, but because she's so far away, it's taking forever. And meanwhile, she's got to deal with these zombies and all the problems that they cause. So hence the unit's called Poppy's Problems. Every week there's a new problem, and the kids have to respond. So the problems are...
While you're talking about that, did you add to that every week? Someone just asked if somebody externally designed your website, or do you design it internally? And do these things happen? Do you add to them every week, or yes, how do you set yourself up for this?
So I made the website myself, but we used Wix, so W-I-X.
Oh, yes, yep.
It's very easy. I do have a background in web development, but honestly, you don't need to know anything about coding to make a very nice looking website through Wix. We also acquired the alias, so the URL sandringhamcollegelibrary.com, because the school URLs are just so convoluted and difficult and hard to remember. So we just thought, we're just going to go sandringhamcollegelibrary.com. And so now the kids actually know where to go. And I think it costs us about $420 a year. So a lot cheaper than LibGuides. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but anyway.
Well, I know I have students who like using Wix and they're year sevens and some of the not the most academic kids. And so you're right. And they just use the free one, but.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's fantastic. And, you know, we have live chat. So students log in and, I mean, well, they don't have to log in, but they just click the chat thing. They type in there, do you have blah, blah, blah book? And then we reply. We find that they're reluctant to email, but they will happily just do a quick chat. Works perfectly on mobile, any device. It's brilliant. So that would probably be a whole separate session I could do for Slav. But yeah, if anyone's interested or wants to know more about that,
I'm going to note that down for next year,
to show you if you wanted to contact me.
Yep, I will note that down and talk about that to Susan for next year. So you were saying you had them coming in every week and you had added
great
story.
All right. Well, yeah. So actually, the site you're looking at right now is actually a Google page. It's a Google site. The main library site is Wix. So we've got all these little offshoots from the old days. And anyway, so this is the zombie apocalypse page. We obviously have their task spelled out pretty clearly to them, tells them what they have to do. And basically what they have to do is they have to go into the contact page, and these were released weekly, or actually it took them a little longer. So this is a term's worth of work. So I tell a lie, because it was online learning during COVID, as you all know, everything takes 10 times as long. We kind of released them as we felt the students, as they were ready for them. So contact 1 went up next week, contact 2, and then I think the next one wasn't for another 2 or 3 weeks because contact 2 took them a little while to solve. But what happens is when they click on it, so contact 1 obviously is the first time they hear from Poppy, is there's a little message from Poppy. The message is just an audio file, but I popped it into YouTube just to make it easy for kids to listen to, because we know that there are problems with different audio file types. So if you just stick the audio into YouTube with a picture, so nothing happens on the video, then they'll all be able to listen to it easily. And then down below the contact, there's all the research material that they need in order to solve the problem. So that's what happens for each of them. I'll just show you one more contact. My timer just closed. Right.
You've got, there's about 7 minutes left.
Right, cool. So here's another one. And then once again, there's quite a lot of information down here. So everything that the children need to solve the problem is here. So I'll give you a little listen to one of the contacts. And look, it doesn't have to be fancy dancy. I just kind of like doing audio stuff. So I did include sound effects and so forth. Now I'm gonna try playing the video, but hopefully the sound works through it. So I'll play the very first contact that we had from Poppy. And by the way, in the last contact, she gets rescued, and there's helicopter noises, and off she goes. So,
it's a sort of more up-to-date version of when I used to have some stories that went along for 5 different sessions with a cliffhanger at the end, and they had to. I'd make them do things, and the next,
ongoing. Okay, so we'll see if it works. Can you hear that?
Yes.
The year is 2020. 2 months after the zombie apocalypse hit the world, a woman called Poppy, alone in her farmhouse in the remote town of Wiluna, Western Australia, reaches out through an old radio. She needs help.
Hear me? I don't know if you hear me, but I need help. I've been here waiting for 3 weeks and the rescue team haven't arrived yet. I know they're coming. It's just that I'm running out of supplies. I'm in the middle of the desert here. I've got a rain tank and it hasn't rained in ages, so I'm running out of water. I'm running out of tins of food. But the worst thing at the moment is I don't know what time it is. My watch is broken. There's no electricity. I don't know what time it is. I feel like I'm going crazy. And for some reason, the zombies, I know they come out at 6 o'clock at night. And if I could just know when it's 6 o'clock, then I'd know how much time I have to go outside and do the things I need to do. Can anyone hear me? Please, if you can hear me, can you please help? I don't know how, but if you can work out a way for me to be able to tell the time, I would be so grateful. Okay, I better go. I hope someone gets this message. Whoever you are, I hope you're well and I hope you're safe. Over and out.
Okay. So I hope that you were able to hear that properly. I mean, it was deliberately bad quality anyway. But the problem is that Poppy can't tell what time it is and the zombies come out at 6 p.m. So she doesn't know when she has to come inside. So the solution is that the children have to build a sundial So they all build a sundial, and of course there's a lot of fantastic learning that goes into that, longitude and latitude, etc. So look, that's it basically, and I don't think I'll go on for much longer because that's probably about the time.
But, we have 3 minutes left, so
Great.
we do have to start. So if people had any questions, but while there haven't been any popped up, I think they're all just listening, but I think it's been a fantastic presentation. It's opened up so many new ideas. I do some things a bit similar, but it's offered me some more fantastic ideas. And we're looking at doing more cross-curricular stuff, and this really does seem to fit right into cross-curricular studies. You know, you can use maths, you can use physics, you can use all sorts of geography, all sorts of different things to create your stories and have them work through problems. Which
we have done. I mean, we've done food tech. Obviously English is easy, but I mean food tech's a good one. They had to bake a pizza, so we created this guy who owns a pizza shop, and you know, so really anything can be storified.
Is there, are there anybody got they've got some fantastic things in the discussion forum, not so much in the I'm going to just open up, sorry, it's very tiny writing. In the discussion forum, you've got some fantastic comments. This is amazing, just amazing. I'm full of excitement. Thank you for sharing with us. Look forward to further exploring your website and your activities. Now, is your website open to people if they want to go and have a look?
Yes, it is. Yep. So it's relatively new. So just if you find any pages that are under construction, just they'll kind of have content soon, but it's just sandringhamcollegelibrary.com.
Okay, and of course that'll be in the at the end when you come back in. These are recorded so you can get back in. Laura Terry asked a question. We've got just a minute left. What led you to this style of work? Were you finding students were not engaged? So what made you take this approach?
Look, I think it's just who I am. I've always been a bit of a storyteller. When I was a kid, I was a really good fibber. And I've just always been aware of, and I did a lot of sales as well. So I've always been aware of the power of telling someone a story to get them to pay attention to you. And of course now, being involved with libraries, I can see, and having done the teaching degree, I can understand that there's actually a way to deliberately use story as a pedagogical tool.
I think we've gone off, or just about to go off, because I think the recording shuts down now. Oh, no. And people have to go off to the next session shortly. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you.